All right, hello and welcome back to the Masterful Lover Podcast series. My name is Dominic Daniels, and in today's episode, we are going to be talking about sexual philosophies and conditioning. Basically, how people develop their sexual philosophies that they have right now and the way that they were conditioned. And this is going to be part one of this specific series, and in part two is going to be next week's episode. In part one, we're going to talk about upbringings and the way that people learned everything that they learned about human sexuality as they were growing up. So typically, the most influential people in our lives when we're growing up as children is obviously our family and our parents, our immediate family. Siblings usually, if you had like an older sibling that was active sexually, maybe you did learn other things as well, but siblings usually weren't active sexually when we were kids, you know what I mean? And so you mainly learned from your parents and or your teachers and the influencers around you. And mostly, teachers on the most side are going to take the conservative side because they have to, otherwise parents will kill them and the PTAs are going to lose their minds. So they have to take the conservative side, but families themselves may either be conservative or they may be liberal, meaning they may be very open about it and they may be talking about it maybe too much sometimes, right? Because kids get freaked out and they're like, oh, you guys are gross and blah, blah, blah. But you have both sides. Now, what happens typically to people when men and or women, right? When we grow up and we actually are active sexually, the things that we saw and the things that we remember are going to impact how we value ourselves and how we value our partners through our interactions. For example, if somebody was, let's say as far as your parents, so if your parents didn't show much affection in front of you when you were a child to each other, like physical affection to each other, you might grow up to not want to show much physical affection to your lover, maybe in public, and it may lead to somewhat of a stiff bedroom situation, and not in a good way, right? In a bad way, like a pretty, and I can't judge, so I can't say it's a bad way. It may be your thing and you guys may be loving it, but a pretty dry and vanilla type of experience, right? And the opposite of that would be if they're doing it too much, if they're too affectionate in front of each other, it may also lead you to do the same thing where you would not want to do it. So both of them would impact you essentially in the same way if you see too much of one thing or too much of the other thing, right? It may still end up making you want to go and not show affection out in public. But however, you may also choose to say, you know what, I love showing affection in public because my parents showed affection in public, so I think that's totally cool. And so that would lead to more of a open and playful experience when you actually transfer that into the bedroom, right? So that's one way that somebody would develop their philosophy. Another way would be through the things that obviously their parents actually verbally tried to teach them, right? Which is, hey, they call it the talk, right? And so the talk itself could have a very, very, very significant impact on the child, whether it's the boy or the girl. If the parent is in an emotional state and they're trying to have that talk with the child, and hopefully you're not in an emotional state where you would say something that would be completely biased and would implant the seed into the mind of the child that's going to like really, turn into this crazy thing down the line. But typically, that's a very defining moment, is when they share whatever their beliefs are. So, hey son, this is how you're supposed to do it. Hey son, this is how it's supposed to be. Or hey daughter, this is what you should let him treat you like. Or, as long as you can let him have this, then you can do this other thing. The job of a woman is to make sure that she's taking care of him. What I mean? And like these things are actual conversations that women have with their daughters, right? Or The lack of the conversation may be this completely other thing, because it gives them no foundation, and now they get their foundation from the world and from the media and everything that's coming out. And it's, just look at what's happening in the music world and the messages that are being delivered and the more popular songs and the popular artists, and how they're actually impacting the mindset of the teenagers that are coming up and the way that they think of themselves sexually and everything like that. So if there is no conversation being had at that point, then the son or the daughter is going to just go buck wild, and they're gonna pretty much do what their idols in the pop culture world are gonna be doing. And then there's also the absence of the parent themselves. So this is where you hear a lot of daddy issues, and or I guess mommy issues, because that can happen too. This phrase coming up a lot, because either the parent was absent mentally, so they were physically present, right? So the dad was there, however mentally he was gone. He was not of a sound mind. He did certain things, said certain things that impacted this young girl and made her believe that she is not valuable enough to the male world, and so she has to do pretty much whatever the male world says that she needs to do so that she can be valuable, right? Because the one male in her life that was supposed to say these things didn't say it, either because he was mentally not present or physically not present, because he was just absent. He decided to bounce, or he wasn't around, so on and so forth. So these are the ways that somebody can be conditioned as they're coming up, right? And this directly transfers into their actual sexuality and the way that they think and feel, and ultimately the way that you would need to be. So as their partner, so if I'm talking to a guy right now and a guy's listening to this and I'm giving men advice on this, if you're trying to satisfy the woman that you're with, you need to understand what you need to understand which one of these, I guess, general categories she kind of falls into. And based on that, you'll learn, through your communications with her, and then we'll talk about communication and all this other stuff as well. Based on that, you'll learn what you would need to do and how you would need to be in order for her to feel comfortable around you so that she can be satisfied. So it's more of a comfortability and chemistry type of a thing with women for them to be fully satisfied, right? To like really fully peak and actually have like a very real orgasm. They need to actually feel that comfort around you, and that has to do with all of these other things that we were just talking about. So this, I would say, I think this is probably good for this. The only other thing that I would say is that make sure that you actually subscribe to the channel, because in not the next episode, because the next episode is still about the sexual philosophies and conditioning, but in the episode after that, we're going to be talking about communication, the art of communication, and why it's important and how to actually do it so that you get the kind of information that you would need from your partner, so that you know exactly what you need to do to get them to peak at their maximum. And that's what this whole thing is about. So leave your questions. I know you're going to have a lot of questions about this, because it kind of feels incomplete to me myself, but I'm trying to stay true to my outline of this of this podcast. So definitely leave your questions, and I'll answer the questions and comments and whatever you may have, and we'll take it from there. And then so we're going to talk about the second part of philosophies and conditioning, sexual philosophies and conditioning, in next episode. And I know you're going to love that as well. And I hope you found this valuable, and you found you kind of had some aha moments or some kind of enlightening epiphany type moments. And I would love to hear about those as well. And yeah, that's about it. So this is Dominic Daniels. This was, I guess, episode 2 or whatever. So this is the Masterful Lover. Let me say that again. This is the Masterful Lover podcast series. And we will talk to you later.